This is literally the road I travel almost on a daily basis.
A major bridge collapsed in Baltimore after it was hit by a container ship. In just seconds, the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed, with vehicles on it crashing into the Patapsco below.
Forward all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching that just lost their steering.
WGAL News 8 begins with breaking news.
Big story tonight on the right is what is left after the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore after container ship lost power and rammed into the bridge. Good afternoon to you. I'm Lori Burkholder.
And I'm Michael Fuller. We have live team coverage as the search for survivors continue. We begin with News 8's Jerry Gish leading out coverage in Baltimore. Jerry.
Well, Lori and Michael, as officials have been talking about here all day, this is a city and a state in shock today because of what has happened on this Francis Scott Key Bridge early this morning. A major piece of infrastructure here just collapsing after being collided with by a large cargo vessel. Want to talk about the latest information we have. The governor, Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, just talking about the fact just minutes ago that this is very much still a search and rescue mission here, and that is still what they are focusing on at this hour. The information we have is there were 8 people on the bridge when it collapsed. 2 of them have been rescued, 1 sent to the hospital. 6 people, though, still unaccounted for, and the search continues for them right now. Again, this all started just before 1:30 this morning. A large cargo ship slammed into one of the supports here of this bridge, and right after that happened, the entire bridge, which carries I-695, collapsed into the Patapsco River. An amazing turn of events here. And again, now the search and rescue mission is on. Also today, President Joe Biden addressing what happened here and saying that federal funds will be used to reconstruct this bridge. Here's what he had to say.
And to the people of Baltimore, I want to say we're with you. We're going to stay with you as long as it takes. And like the governor said, you're Maryland tough, you're Baltimore strong, and we're going to get through this together. And I promise we're not leaving.
And in fact, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg was just speaking, and he described the bridge here as really a cathedral of American infrastructure. And you can see right behind me right now, it has just collapsed into the river. Turn now to Meredith Jorgen. She's part of our team coverage out here. She's been out here all day long. And Meredith, of course, the investigation just beginning into exactly what happened with this cargo ship, but it sounds like it might have lost power.
It's so interesting to figure out the timeline of what happened here, Jerry. It was the middle of the night, right, 1:30 in the morning, and we're learning that the boat might have lost power just moments before it actually slammed into one of the pillars of this bridge. But it was a mayday call. And the governor of Maryland says that might have made all the difference because that's when officials were able to actually stop traffic from being on the bridge, stop cars from going over, and that's why there might have been fewer injuries in this case. Now, there are a lot of agencies investigating right now. We have state agencies, federal agencies, the FBI, there are dive teams involved. They did have a briefing with the NTSB, which sent an investigative team of 24 people here, and those people are going to pour over safety records. They have experts in nautical operations. They have bridge experts. But they did say right now it's still about the people who are missing, still about those families. Then they'll work on the investigation and only then work on the transportation issues that are, of course, going to be affected by this bridge collapse. But one of the things that really stood out to me today is the investigators are going to need the data recorders that are on the ship. So that'll be an important thing, right, Jerry, that the investigators will need. But they didn't look for those today because investigators would have had to board the ship. Right. And if they got onto the ship, that would have impeded some of the search and rescue efforts. So they said, we have our priorities. We're going to do it in steps. They are waiting on that just so they can do that search and rescue effort.
There is so much to tackle here, but they're kind of taking it a step at a time. And again, we just hear again and again, they're saying the focus is search and rescue right now.
Are the most important.
The data recorders, we often hear about black boxes from airplanes. In this case, it would be from this large cargo ship.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And hopefully that'll have a lot of information that they need in this investigation to find out what happened.
All right, Meredith, thank you. We appreciate it. All right, our team coverage continues now. We've been talking a lot about how this search and rescue continues. So let's talk a little bit more about the victims of this bridge collapse. And for that, go to News.
Yeah. Yeah, good afternoon to you, Jerry. We're at a little bit of a different vantage point than many others. We're on the southern side of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and this is an area where a lot of people who had connections, especially to those workers who were on the bridge, they have been gathering here, and they remain hopeful. As you said, this is still a search and rescue mission, and that has them feeling rather optimistic. Now, earlier today, the governor told us that his exclusive mission is to save lives. Here is what we know right now about who was on the bridge this morning. Investigators have confirmed, as you said, 8 workers from Brawner Builders Incorporated out of Hunt Valley, Maryland, were filling potholes overnight when the cargo ship hit the bridge. Now, of those workers, we know that 2 were rescued from the water. 1 was not injured and was able to talk to investigators about what happened. The other was rescued but was taken to Baltimore shock trauma for treatment. Community members here are still hopeful the others will be found soon.
I have heard that the water is cold, 48 degrees is what I heard this morning. The hours that have passed, it seems bleak, but I know my Lord can do miraculous things. I am still hoping and praying that they pull people out and get them the help they need, and I'm still very hopeful.
The United States Coast Guard is in charge of the search for the people right now. They are being assisted by Baltimore Fire Department and the Army Corps of Engineers. Now, it is not clear, and we just heard in a press conference that they are still investigating whether or the number of vehicles that were on the bridge at the time of the crash. Officials very hesitant right now to give a number, and we're told by the NTSB right now they are not giving a specific number of individuals that they are looking for. Instead, they say they are simply absolutely leaving no stone unturned in their search. In Baltimore, Ann Shannon, WGAL News 8.
And thank you very much. And yes, that number is very fluid right now, and very key right now is what we're talking about here was exactly how many vehicles were on this bridge, and of course the investigation continues into that. But that distress call that Meredith talked about may have saved lives. In fact, it looks like it did by preventing at least some of the traffic from crossing the bridge as the bridge collapsed. We've been talking a lot about the step-by-step process here, but it is amazing to think about what is ahead here in the days, weeks, and even months to come. First of all, you have a major thoroughfare here, I-695. Some 34,000 vehicles a day go over this bridge, so that is going to need to be addressed, and it could take a long time, of course, to rebuild this bridge, even with the support of the federal government. And then also, the Port of Baltimore is closed right now to shipping traffic. It is one of only 3 ports on the East Coast that deals with the largest of the ships that do international shipping. In other words, a very important port. So much is going to be impacted in the coming days, weeks, and months by all of this. And our coverage, of course, continue here on WGAL, including coming up. Ed Weinstock is covering another angle for us, the truck traffic and all the different shipping that could be impacted by this. Much more on that coming up. We're also going to talk with an expert on exactly what we're looking at with this bridge collapsing here today. That's all coming up here on WGAL, but for now, we'll send it back into the studio to you.
All right, Jerry and the team out there working on this breaking story for us. Thank you so much. Of course, so many questions to come as this investigation continues to unfold. We're going to be here for you covering it all. You can follow the Baltimore bridge collapse on air, also online at WGAL.com.